Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, The Glammed Rebel. I hope everyone's having a good day. Please like, comment, and subscribe for daily updates. Taylor promised Brooke would never live peacefully after the Italian shipwreck. Nick Marone had been planning every detail of the proposal for weeks. It would be big but cozy. The proposal would take place on a yacht off the coast of Italy, with the sun setting behind it and a pleasant breeze making the sea look velvety. Brooke Logan would be surrounded by beauty, bathed in golden light, and filled with one simple question: will you be my wife? He was sure of himself and determined after everything they had been through. Tangled pasts, shattered loyalties, and ghosts that wouldn't go away. This was his chance to take control of their future. Nick didn't realize that Ridge Forrester, who was desperate and proud, had already gotten on a boat nearby. He heard about the proposition from Eric and rushed to stop it. Ridge had no plan, just instinct, and he ended the engagement before it became final. He convinced himself that he wasn't jealous. He said it was love, but deep down, he knew he couldn't lose Brooke again. Not to Nick. Not right now. Brooke stood at the edge of the yacht and took in the view as it glided silently by the rocks. She felt something special. Calm. The kind of tranquility that comes after a lot of trouble. She saw Nick coming toward her with something small and silky behind his back. She knew what was coming, and for the first time in years, she didn't know what to say. But suddenly it all fell apart. A powerful wave came out of nowhere and hit the side of the yacht with horrifying force. The boat creaked, lurched violently, and flipped over in just a few seconds. Things like furniture, glasses, and bodies were thrown all over the place. Screams echoed across the air. The metal broke. Water took everything. Nick never even got down on one knee. Ridge had just woken up from a nap in the trailing boat when the surge hit and threw him headfirst into the pandemonium. He tried to grip the edge of the boat that had flipped over, but the force pulled him under. Eric Forrester had been holding on to a live kid and shouting out for Ridge and Brooke in the middle of the mayhem. But suddenly there was a crack of metal. A loose iron beam that had been ripped free by the power of the fall hit the ground with deadly accuracy. It hit Eric's shoulder and head, breaking bones, and he sank below the surface before anyone could get to him. Still, blood spread out in the water like ink. Brooke kicked hard underwater, her lungs begging for breath. Confused, hurt, but still battling. She grabbed for the light above her, getting closer to the surface. But then Nick was stuck in the wreckage near the front of the sinking deck. His leg became stuck in a railing that was bent. He stretched out and grabbed her ankle, his eyes wild with fear. It wasn't an attack. It was a request. Help me. Don't go away. Brooke wasn't sure what to do. She grabbed his arm and tried to get him free, but his grip made it harder for her to climb. Her lungs hurt. She kicked harder. He wouldn't let go. Then everything went dark. She was on the beach, wrapped in an emergency blanket when she woke up. Her chest rose and fell. She experienced a ringing sensation in her ears. She had salt and sand stuck to her skin. Paramedics surrounded her, but her eyes were fixed on one thing. His body, which was dead, was lying on the shore a few feet away. They had tried CPR. There were empty oxygen tanks lying around. His face was pallid and his eyes were closed. No answer. Is he still alive? She gasped and could scarcely say the words. A medic looked up with a frown. He kept you alive. He hauled you out of the water before collapsing. He isn't awake. We're taking him to the ICU. Quick. Brooke couldn't say anything. Her fingers shook as she searched for Rich, but the gurney moved away more quickly. The sirens started to wail. Nick was being treated nearby. He was still alive but badly hurt and in shock. He was crying quietly and with shame. I didn't mean to. He said I couldn't get out. Brooke didn't say anything. She couldn't stop thinking about Ridge and what he had done for her at that time. The hospital was cool and clean. The lights flickered and the machines beeped. Ridge was in a coma and couldn't respond. Doctors said that not getting enough oxygen had caused a lot of damage. His vital signs were stable, but his brain activity was low. Lee added in a quiet, tired voice that the next 48 hours are critical. He might wake up or he might not come back. Brooke was always on his side. She sat in the hospital room, holding hands with the man who had saved her life again. She gazed at every part of his face. She noticed the cuts, the bruises, and his calm strength. The tears came slowly and steadily. She mumbled sorries, confessions, and recollections. "You saved me, Ridge. You always saved me." And I, her voice. "I never got to say yes. I never got to pick you back." In the meantime, news of the crash spread quickly over Los Angeles. The media came in droves. Yacht catastrophe off the coast of Italy. Eric Forrester was thought to be dead. Ridge Forrester is in a coma. Brooke Logan lives. There was a lot of mayhem at Forrester Creations. Donna couldn't be comforted. Steffi came right away by plane. Thomas tried to keep the business together, but everyone was on edge all the time. And Eric's body had not yet been found. Divers from the Coast Guard searched the wreckage. The ocean held its secrets, but every hour that went by without a recovery made the fear worse. Brooke wouldn't listen to Hope and RJ when they tried to help her. She merely looked at Ridge. Nick left the hospital without notifying anyone. He was tormented by guilt. The ring, which was still in his wet pocket, was a painful reminder of what he had lost. He walked along the coast, going over the moment again and again. Would Ridge still be awake if he hadn't planned the proposal and had waited one more day? Would Eric still be alive? Lee told Brooke about Ridge's scans when they got back to the hospital. There was a tiny flicker in the brain's activity, a possible sign of awareness. Brooke didn't want to hope, but she talked to him anyhow. She told him stories, read old letters, and played music from their past. She slept on the couch next to him and wouldn't leave. Every morning and every night, she kissed his hand. On the 5th day, his fingers started to move. Brooke sat up, her heart thumping. She muttered, "Ridge." His lips opened, and he was breathing hard. There was one word. It was weak, Logan. It was genuine, yet it was broken. She yelled for aid. Nurses ran in. The machines turned on. Ridge opened his eyes just a little, but it was enough. He was still alive. Brooke held his hand and cried. "You're back with me," she remarked. Ridge blinked as he tried to say something. "You saved me," she said again. "And I promise I won't flee this time. I won't have any doubts. Nothing will come between us." Lee cut Ridge off before he could say anything. "We need to do more tests. He is still in danger." Brooke took a step back, but the fire was still in her heart. A second opportunity, love and hope. And even though Ridge was still alive, the damage from that day was only starting to show. Eric was still missing. The family was broken. Nick was gone, and he was now full of shame. The ocean also had one last secret to share. A week after the crash, the Coast Guard spotted a survivor washed ashore on a rocky inlet, holding a briefcase with Forrester initials. Eric Forrester is still alive, but just barely. As the heart monitor flatlined, Steffi Forrester stood outside the ICU room with her hands pushed against the glass, her breathing misting the window. Doctors ran in and yelled orders, but her legs gave out before she could hear the last one. A nurse snatched her just as she fell to the icy floor of the hospital. Ridge Forrester, who was her father, guardian, and constant support, was no longer in the room. Even though there were signs of progress, and Brooke held on to her prayers and optimism, Ridge had a sudden embolism during the night. This condition occurs when the body does not receive enough oxygen for an extended period. No warning, no farewells. The man who had hauled Brooke out of the sea with his last bit of strength died alone in a clean room with machines and no sound. The end had come. Steffi shrieked in response to the doctor's announcement. Not cried, but yelled, the kind of sound that hurt your bones. Thomas got there a few minutes later, pale and shivering, and he could barely understand what had happened. He murmured that he was just waking up. He was going to be fine. But there was no more hope, and Rich was dead. The Forrester family had lost their home. And Steffi, who now had to deal with the unimaginable, was broken beyond repair. For hours, Brooke didn't say a word. She sat in the hallway with her hands firmly clasped, making her knuckles white. When it happened, she was clutching Ridge's hand. She had been whispering to him about a future they would never see. She had said, "We'll go to Big Bear. Maybe we'll take RJ. I hope we can start over." She hadn't realized that his breathing had changed. She didn't know that his heart was slowing down. She believed the alarm was broken when it went off, but it wasn't. Ridge had spared her from drowning, but now he was slowly drowning in quiet while she told him stories. Now that he was gone, the guilt was too much to bear. Later that night, Brooke cried in front of RJ. She cried, "It should have been me. He would still be alive if I hadn't been aboard that boat and he hadn't dived in." RJ held her up to keep her from falling, but nothing he said could ease her grief. "Mom, you didn't make him do it." He said he made a decision. He chose you, but the guilt made it hard for Brooke to breathe. Her heart, which Ridge's hands had protected, suddenly felt like it was burning because he was dead. But grief doesn't come by itself. It brought Taylor, and Taylor was angry. She burst into the hospital, her eyes wide and her lips shaking, not with sadness but with rage. She shouted, "You killed him," as soon as she saw Brooke. "Don't act like you didn't." Brooke blinked in shock. "No, Taylor." But Taylor wasn't there to make things better. She was there to get back at him. Taylor spat. "You pulled him onto that boat. You let him chase you into another bad situation. You always do. He saves you, yet you let him die." Brooke tried to defend herself, but Taylor stopped her. He was getting better. He lived, and you couldn't let him go. You can't ever. You just keep taking until there's nothing left. The hospital staff tried to keep them apart, but Taylor's remarks hit home. Brooke's guilt flared up. "I didn't mean to," she said softly. But Taylor's face showed how disgusted she was. Image_Sentinel. "If you think I'm going to sit back and let you turn the situation into a sad love story, you're wrong." Thomas managed to get his mother out of the situation before it escalated. But the harm was done, and Taylor wasn't done yet. The next day, she talked to the reporters. She painted a picture of carelessness, pride, and manipulation. Rich Forrester is dead because he got into a dangerous scenario that should never have happened. She stated it on camera. The woman who was with him when he drowned needs to address some questions. The media got on board. Headlines went crazy. Did Brooke Logan kill Rich Forrester? Experts made guesses. Blogs picked apart her past. The world brought back to life every incident and blunder. Brooke turned into a bad guy overnight. Friends started to pull away. Business partners stopped becoming friendly. Hope even asked in a low voice, "Mom, what really happened on that yacht?" And Taylor made it apparent that she wouldn't stop. She made a formal complaint and asked for a civil probe. She hired private detectives to look through weather records, logs, and video evidence. She talked to the Coast Guard. She was sure, if not by logic, then by anger, that Ridge died because Brooke was careless, and she was determined to prove it. Brooke, feeling overwhelmed and alone, stopped talking. She said no to interviews. She stopped going to the Forrester office. She seldom ever left her house. Only Donna and Katie came by often, and even they didn't know what to say. Every room felt empty without Ridge. She saw his face and heard his voice every night as he dragged her out of the water. She kept wondering to herself, what if Taylor is right? What if loving Ridge had cost him his life after all? At the same moment, Steffi, who was now divided between sadness and anger, was stuck in the middle. She didn't blame Brooke directly, but Taylor's strong belief got to her. Would he still be here if he hadn't gone out there? She whispered one night to Finn's empty picture frame. Thomas, too, felt like he was going to break under the pressure. He didn't want to think that Brooke was to blame for their father's death. However, each time he saw Brooke's face on a tabloid cover or heard Taylor crying alone at night, his suspicions began to grow. And through it all, Eric Forrester, who had finally recovered from the sea and was stable in a hospital bed, woke up to the news of Ridge's death. For hours, he didn't say anything. When he finally did, the first thing he asked was, "Did Brooke live?" He just closed his eyes when they informed him, yes, that Ridge had died saving her. "They were always meant to be together," he remarked. "But not like this." The Forrester heritage is now broken, with Ridge interred next to Stephanie. Taylor is making a case in court. Brooke feels guilty and alone all the time. The family is not on the same page. The fashion world is in shock. And in the background, the tempest is still brewing because Taylor doesn't want to see justice done. She wants revenge. She also says that Brooke will never be at peace again. Feel free to share any video requests in the comments. I'll try to make a video about it. Stay connected with the Glammed Rebel for all the latest updates, spoilers, and deep dive recaps. See you in the next video. Stay safe and healthy. May God keep you safe. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell button for daily updates.